Welcome to the 7th edition of Insights. We're together with my colleague, Dr. Roberta Lepre, and our guests today, Mr. Frank Bothwell and Mr. John Grima. We are going to discuss success stories and lessons learned through the COVID-19 pandemic. Roberta and myself are assisting a number of companies to adapt to the current environmental challenges and economic challenges. Companies that are adapting not solely from a corporate governance perspective and sustainability, but also from an operational perspective. So today we would like to as well introduce Frank and John. Frank, you're the founder of Thomas Franks. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us, both Frank and John. Welcome to our Insight edition. And Frank, I think it will be a good opportunity to introduce Thomas Franks to our audience. An interesting and lovely story, I must admit, that we've shared a couple of times, even when we met in Malta, built on strong foundations and strong values of trust, of loyalty, combining food, creativity, family business, but as well as obviously there's a financial aspect to it as well, and the team. You've expanded Thomas Franks even in Malta, and that's how we met, and as well as in Portugal. What's your story, Frank? How did the Thomas Franks start?
Well, it's very kind of you, Nadia. Thank you, and Roberta. We're very proud of our company. Thomas Franks has been trading for 15 years, and it has now 2,000 employees in throughout the UK, Ireland, Scotland, and we opened in Malta about 2 years ago. We're very proud of our Malta operation. We have a proper limited company in Malta, and the people of Malta, the government was so kind in allowing us to set up a proper company that was Maltese. They were so warm to us, and the clients that we've got have been fantastic. So we grew in Malta over the last 2 years, and we've got some lovely government contracts like Mita, and some of the iGaming companies like Kindred, and Play and Go, and Evolution Gaming, to name but a few. So over those last 2 years, when the crisis hit, it allowed us to rethink our business model. And we decided to try and embrace our core values by bringing ethics into business. So we turned the whole company, in Malta particularly, into a company that produced food for the vulnerable. And I spoke to John, who can speak for himself in a moment, and I phoned him at the very beginning of the crisis, and I said, we can't give up. We have to feed people. We have kitchens, we have qualified chefs, and we have some money. Let's produce some food. And we decided to try and feed a couple of hundred people. And I think as of this week, John and his team, through our wonderful clients and the Maltese government, have allowed us to produce 20,000 free meals in the last 6 weeks for the vulnerable group. I'll let John come on to that point in a moment, but it was one of those things that we decided to do, not just in Malta, but also in Portugal and Ireland and Scotland and through the whole of the UK. And over the last 6 weeks, we've delivered and produced free of charge 80,000 free meals to the vulnerable group. Families that are suffering food poverty because of COVID, an uptake in homelessness. And if we can do our bit to alleviate the stress of local councils and government by providing this food, then we'll do that, and we'll keep doing that. And we'll come on to that in a moment, I'm sure, but there has to be a legacy of giving. We have to build on this compassion. And the trade-off of that is that countries like Malta were so kind to us, allowing us to set up what is a long-term legacy relationship, that we felt it just natural and right to give back. But perhaps John can expand on the kinds of projects that he's been doing in Malta.
In fact, John, we had a couple of conversations, I remember, during the past weeks, and it's amazing how Frank and John, you both have mobilized the team. Instead of, obviously the natural thing would be, let's look at our financials, let's look at our plans, because obviously you certainly have been impacted in different situations, but instead you stepped up and you managed to realign and collaborate with different, not only clients, but also NGOs, different companies. And John has amazingly delivered so many different foods to different people, to different entities. What was your experience, John?
I think for me, when Frank asked us, will we feed communities, straight away we said yes. And the great thing for me was that when we asked our employees, they all said yes as well. So then suddenly I had a force behind me, not only Frank's inspiration to get it, I then had a force behind me that we could deliver this. Even at that point, I dreamed of delivering maybe 1,000 meals to the vulnerable. So as we got going, we worked with JCI, so they were a great help to us. And we started feeding YMCA and other vulnerable groups within JCI. And then the president, actually, we saw the article and spoke with you about the president's feeding initiative. I think Frank was inspired by that. And that led to us suddenly producing, I think it was about 4,500 meals for hospitals. So we started with that today. Then I got a call from Bothwell Hospital saying, hey, don't forget about us. And then it just grew, then St. Thomas. So we did that. And as that started to come to an end, me and Nadia, we had another discussion, didn't we, about feeding the communities.
Indeed.
So we went on to feed regularly. I mean, we're still doing it now. We're giving 100 meals every other day to 17 different communities. So that's in collaboration with Bolt, who are delivering them for us. So that was that. And then Frank again had a great idea of coming up with feeding the homeless. So I thought, right, well, we're lucky enough to work with some fabulous clients here. And the donations we've been receiving have been great and, given us what we needed. Frank's donation from the UK into us, which was what got us started. Then, lo and behold, we're now delivering another 5,000 meals to the homeless. So that's through the Knights of Malta. So yeah, it's just gone from strength to strength. But I think for me, what's made me really happy to do it is that we've never compromised on our standards. So for me, it doesn't matter if it goes to the Prime Minister, who we've recently fed, or the homeless person, or the migrants. It's really key that they open that box and they get the same quality that we would be delivering to anybody. So yeah, it's been a fantastic journey.
That's amazing. But Frank, this is interesting how in these situations, I don't think it's by chance actually that you've developed this relationship and so many collaborations with different companies, not just clients like you mentioned, but also local providers. You realigned yourselves collaborated with Bolt for the delivery and for the food locally in Malta. And I presume you've done the same in Portugal as well as in the UK, in Ireland, and different parts of the UK. So was this part of your business model throughout, or has it actually COVID accentuated that?
So we've always been a collaborative company. We're a warm, friendly, tactile bunch in Thomas Franks. We're quite touchy-feely, which of course you can't do with social distancing. So we've turned our attention to trying to come together for one common aim, and that's to feed people in food poverty, which is going to get worse for the next 6 months, I believe. So we use that collaborative approach in Thomas Franks. It's a real frenzy of good ideas. That's the company I know. We reached out to what is now 60 or 70 other charities, like the ones John's mentioned, but nationwide in the UK and in Portugal. So we even started to feed the ambulance drivers in certain parts of Portugal and certain parts of England, because they were saying, well, we're doing 7 days a week and we don't get any food and we can't go to shops because we're not clean. So we devised a method of delivering through charities that were linked with the paramedics, and we gave them the same quality and standard that was required. So we found new friends through this collaborative approach, and I think it's beautiful. And I think that part of the problem to go back to a question you asked a while ago, part of the problem with companies that are limited by liability, that are set up to trade and make profit, is that what I think is important now, as we come out of COVID, we go through a very difficult period of rebuilding our businesses, our bank balances, our liquidity, and our cash flow, is that if we work together and realise that there won't be any profit or much profit in our businesses, and we take that ambition to make profit away for a period of time, it will reduce the burden of unemployment on governments. The companies become a little bit more not-for-profit during this rebuilding phase. So forget dividends and forget big bonuses and lavish lifestyle. That's dead. What should be happening is an ethical approach to stopping mass unemployment by producing new ways of trading. So if Thomas Franks was to develop into a company that trades to feed the vulnerable, to take pressure off governments, we would do just that if it keeps my people employed. But I wouldn't seek to make 1 penny in profit, 1 cent in profit from that activity. And most of our management team are just so hungry to keep going and diversify and collaborate, because they know that by doing that, it will stop large companies just making mass redundancies to try and make a profit during this awful period. And nobody can make a huge profit during this awful period. We have to work together. So that kind of hopefully answers the question. We are collaborating. We've formed alliances with so many new friends that we'll never lose and we'll keep working with. But to give back for the future as a legacy, to keep providing food aid, is something we'll be doing. And we've turned our own foundation, our charity, into that engine to allow us to do that.
I think this is very meaningful what you're saying, Frank, because it goes beyond just the one-off charitable or kind initiative, but it's literally a re-engineering of the business model, as you mentioned in the beginning. Also shifting the mindset from a profit-based mindset to a certain extent to one which is not so profit motivated. So I think it's perhaps relatively easy to share this kind of philosophy with individuals perhaps like yourself and John, who already have that philosophy ingrained in them. But to a wider audience, what would you tell them if people, especially business owners, maybe they're suffering a lot of losses at the moment? How can they make that leap to be able to transform themselves in the manner that you're sharing with us?
Well, I think it's incumbent upon all of us that run businesses to take the pressure off our central governments. I think if we all gave up, we would bankrupt our countries, and we need to keep trading and find ways of doing so and diversify. But my own personal opinion is that I own a business that was heading towards turning over 60 million, maybe 80 million euros before the crisis struck. And I've reforecasted that to start at zero, and it will build again. But one thing I'm not interested in is making a profit that can be given as a dividend to anybody. That's not going to happen. My aim is to make sure that all of my employees have a job. It just might be that the job that they were doing is different. It may be that we're going to start to do hospital feeding at not-for-profit, but better food, or government departments that want to have a better defence food in any country that is not-for-profit. But you're going to have executive chefs that are used to doing the best food in the best banks in different countries, delivering the best food at not-for-profit for government's armies and government central departments and hospital workers. And I think they'll be happy to do that, because the other option is they'll be out of work. So I believe that we need to form a view that limited companies can be not-for-profit if it means that they can rebuild and not have mass unemployment, because that will just exacerbate the problem. And we'll end up feeding this wonderful food to people that shouldn't have it. They should be working. So re-engineering the business, the board are fully behind this. They know it's going to be a hard 6 months, and I think I reminded them by saying it'll be a hard but fun, enjoyable 2 years to develop something which may end up being the future of Thomas Franks. It may end up being a company that has a lot of relationships and turnover in not-for-profit social enterprise, with the core aim of keeping people employed with kindness and humility at its heart. And I believe that is our core future business plan. So my message to businesses is, if you want to make a quick buck, it's not going to happen, because the critical trade-off from this compassion, this amplified kindness that's going around Europe, is that you'll be remembered as a brand, and your historical trading methods will come back in abundance. That's the critical trade-off in my view. I mean, John, you may want to add to that.
Indeed, John, this is interesting, because now we have exactly, Rob. This is something which you have been advocating for a long time, and obviously we find it extremely perhaps difficult, or some companies are finding it challenging to shift that mindset, Frank. So listening to your vision, to your strategy is extremely interesting. And also now having John with us, who is obviously one of your team members, important team member, not only for Malta, but also for all the other businesses. He's part of the executive management team. How, when the founder is basically next to you, and obviously it's not the first time he has shared his vision in this manner, I'm pretty sure of that, because we had discussions even offline, specifically regarding this. How does the team respond to this? How did the team respond to it during and now looking forward, John? What are your views on this one?
Well, we've been in constant dialogue in SLT meetings, on webinars with each other, and we've always known that we have to be more diverse. We have to change our approach. But I think I'm proud to work for Thomas Franks, because as I look at other companies falling and other contract caterers in the UK and across Europe making mass redundancies that are just unheard of in any other times, Frank hasn't done that, and what he's done is he's given us hope for the future. So if that means myself and others giving up to push on and have Thomas Franks here in 2 years, 3 years, is fantastic. But I think me and Frank had a chat the other day, and we said, we should have done this sooner. This charity thing, it's been so fantastic to see people's reactions, and how they've received that food, and how much change it's made, and how much change we're making to people's lives, that, I think it has a future. And that's tasked me and Tim with, looking into setting up a charity and a legacy in Malta that just keeps giving back, because that's what he and we want to support and do. So I think for me, we're asked to come up with new business ideas, new opportunities for sustainability, but it excites me that it's not, it's in lieu of one of my brothers, if you like, being made redundant. It's all about keeping us going and giving back. It's fantastic.
You feel part of the transformation as well, John. I believe both you and the team and the rest of the team. So you're part of this.
Really, yeah.
So it's really amazing. But I'm pretty sure, Frank and John, that you've had some challenges, of course, in different ways, even being in catering. So as you mentioned, hygiene is a top priority and will continue and remain to be as such, not for the short term, but also the long and the medium and to the long term. So what were the lessons learned, as also the challenges more than anything? Let's start with the challenges that kind of this situation has posed to your business, to your team, and also managing different teams in different locations, which is, it might be a challenge in itself without any crisis, let alone if you include COVID to all this.
So the challenges 7 or 8 weeks ago was we spent a lot of time locking down the business to protect it and remodeling our finances for our clients to help them, which each country manager did. John did very well for Malta. And the next day, we agreed that we would start to do feeding communities, which was this charitable work. The biggest challenge was taking intelligent catering leadership minds who are used to delivering high-end food from industrial kitchens into producing these meals without any infrastructure. It was like going back 25 years. That took a few days to get settled in people's minds. And once we'd shown them that it could be done, and that the answer was always going to be yes anyway, we would find a way. We had an army of volunteers. About 150 volunteers came on straight away, chefs, managers, leaders, directors. The challenges that came up were how to distribute safely, bearing in mind there was a killer virus on the loose, food to every region. So we wrote a very robust action plan and risk assessment for each individual and trained those into our employees via our HR department online. And we proved that we could do this with social distancing, with PPE, and with good hygiene. So that was a challenge. And then the last challenge was we didn't own a fleet of refrigerated trucks. So we went to our supply chain, who we've known for 15 years, and asked them if we could borrow a couple of vans, just expecting a few old vans to turn up in certain places. And the very next day, we were donated 40 refrigerated trailers, walk-in freezers, vans, drivers, industrial drivers that were furloughed by their employers came out to volunteer and have been driving around the country. And when I speak to all the volunteers, it makes me quite emotional because they all tell me that the last 8 weeks have gone in 8 minutes for them, and that their mental health has been saved by coming out to give back and look after other people. And that because of this, it's the first time many hundreds of people have given back any kind of charity in their life. They are pledging to continue by doing a few hours a week or a few hours a day when the new normal returns. So I think this movement of feeding communities has not just given back to others who are vulnerable, but given back to our own employees and helped them with their mental health. So that those were some of the challenges. John might have faced a few more. I may have been one of his challenges.
I think for me, most recently, we had a big challenge in that some clients, but not all, were calling up saying, "What's your plan, Frank? What's your plan to reopen?" So Frank got us all together and he gave us 2 weeks and he said, you got 2 weeks. We've got such a large number of sectors that we work within. We need a plan to cover schools and to cover business and industry. How can we deliver catering safely? So together, it must have taken 8 hours of meetings, a bit like this, not in the same room, obviously. Going forward, everyone's ideas, trying to get everyone's ideas into one document. And eventually we devised a COVID return to work plan.
For all the different countries.
Every country has one. So I've got one for Malta, we've got one for Portugal, Ireland, and the UK. So Portugal's got a school one and a B&I one, as has the UK. And here at the moment, we've just got a B&I one because we aren't lucky enough to have our first school yet, but I'm hoping for one soon. So that gives those clients reassurance that we've got European Safety Bureau behind us who have looked through our plans, plus helped us by adding to it, giving advice before we sent it out. So yeah, that was a really big challenge, but the feedback that we've got from all the offices and schools has been great, and some changes have been made to it, but overall the finished document is ready. And happy how when the Malta Tourism released the opening the restaurants, we were pretty much bang on with the suggestions, so there wasn't any need to make any great change. So yeah, that was a challenge, but one I'm glad we
Am I right? So am I right in saying that even though financial, obviously, the liquidity, financial sustainability is paramount for every business to sustain itself for a long period of time, even though it might not be making any profit, but it wasn't the primary factor, Frank, within your plans. There were other factors alongside that plan that were as important or even perhaps even more important. The fact that you want to provide a legacy, the fact that your collaboration aspect, the fact that you're transforming the business. So not solely the financial aspect. Am I right in saying that?
In fact,
Yes, you are.
Nadia, I'm also interested in this aspect also from a corporate governance point of view, because traditionally we tend to always go for the idea, which is also embedded in the law, that a company is primarily responsible towards its shareholders. But you mentioned earlier that your board was also very much behind you when it came to this shifting of priorities. So how did you manage to get to that stage?
It's very democratic, it's not a Mugabe-esque regime in Thomas Franks at all, is it, John? But I think simplistically, we faced with this crisis the deepest, darkest hour in hundreds of years. And therefore, to expect to just have normality and to expect to have dividends paid and lavish bonuses is ludicrous. It's an oxymoron. You can't have it. So what I've pledged to my board and my shareholders is that we will have a return to an extremely profitable business. But some of that profit as a legacy has now got to go to the charities that we have formed to provide a legacy giving as a budget figure to continue to feed the vulnerable in food poverty. And not one of them had a problem with that. The short-term pain of not having dividends and bonuses is something which people have to expect. This crisis has created a new world, and anything's for change, I think. A company's primary responsibility is to look after the health and safety of its employees and its customers. It's to trade ethically and morally, and it's to pay its taxes locally. That's what it should be doing. Any profit that's earned post-crisis, post-rebuild, post-restocking of bank accounts and liquidity can be shared amongst those that have taken this new journey. And that can be shareholders, but it can also be the charitable businesses that need to be supported still. And no one had a problem with that, really, at all, in fact, because it just feels natural to operate in that way. It doesn't feel too different to how our core values have been for the last 15 years. I think what's happened during this crisis for us, and it's just our opinion, is that we've actually had more fun. I mean, we were fun and different and disruptive anyway with each other. But all the directors and all the heads of departments, and there's about 100 of those guys in Thomas Franks all over the place, have come together and formed new relationships. And we've learned much more about each other. And we trust each other. So when somebody comes up with an idea that can save someone's job to diversify into a new market, we all listen and we respect that person's opinion. And we laugh at them openly, and we share their good ideas with everybody else. So we've come closer together. But I think the key thing for me, and it sounds like a big number, I know, but it's not a big number for us, but to feed 80,000 people in food poverty in about 6 weeks, we're used to doing that number every day. And so we're quite humbled that people think it's great. We're actually a bit embarrassed that we didn't start doing it earlier. I think John's mentioned that. And we'll do that from now on in by diverting parts of our profit to food poverty aid and charitable and charitable means. Once we've paid our taxes, of course, everywhere. That's key. If government doesn't have taxable income, you can't do anything. But I think the trade-off on this compassion will be that new relationships will be formed and new ideas will be listened to, and companies will trust us perhaps to come up with different solutions for them for their catering needs moving forward. I hope that answers that question.
You've repositioned yourself, I think, even though it was part of the core foundation of your business, Frank, as you mentioned from the outset. But I think what COVID-19 gave you and the team the opportunity to stand out and make it more clear and communicate that message in different ways. And I think
in the past years and months, we've heard a lot about this idea of having purpose-driven organizations, but nobody really actually understood how and what to go about it and why to do it. And I think this is a very clear example of maybe an external situation that has accelerated the transformation. And it's nice to see how Frank and John are looking at this as a long-term thing rather than just something to do while all this is happening.
And hopefully we'll have more organizations that follow suit, Frank and John.
It's very difficult, Nadia and Roberta, when you see, look at a Malta example here. The minute we found out that the president's wife had produced food for the hospital, we both phoned each other. And I said, have you seen this? I don't think this has happened in many European countries. I think the one of the royal family in Holland or somewhere was working as a nurse, which was beautiful to see. But we were inspired by the president's wife. And I said to John, she probably hasn't got a very big kitchen. Why don't we feed the whole hospital and take some pressure off the nurses and the people suffering on the front line? And John said to me, so you're doing this because you've been inspired by the president's wife? And I said, absolutely. But don't make the food too good, otherwise you'd embarrass her. And he didn't. He made it very good.
And he didn't.
Sorry, Rob.
I was wondering because there has been this school of thought circulating for a while, obviously, which I have been supporting and advocating for as well, where there is this forecasting that going forward we will start measuring the success of a company based on its social impact. Do you see this trend happening, and do you feel that maybe COVID is also accelerating this trend?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, all of the food that we've produced has gone out in environmental containers. We were clear about that from the offset. It had to be that way. I think the environment has improved. The circular economy has got to be part of our modern language, in my opinion. So we're halfway there on that because we only buy our food from family-owned local suppliers in Malta, and we'll continue to do so. And I'll let John come in a minute because he's great at this. But one of the things that I've found throughout this crisis is new suppliers have come to me that I've never heard of, and there's so many of them. There's a tea company in London that's international, and you'd love them. It has the best tea in the world, and it's a not-for-profit charity where they take vulnerable people that would be either homeless or they'd be migrants that would be sent back. And they're qualified engineers and chemists, these people. But they need to have a start in life. So this tea company, Nemi Tea, has been taken on by Thomas Franks. We'll start using their tea. Their turnover will build. People will then get the chance to have a reference on their CV. And these people that make tea, who are highly skilled, trained people, can then go off and build bridges and make medicines and vaccines. And it just blows your mind when you think about the possibility of collaborating with social enterprises who've got great products. And if we open our eyes, there is so much more we can do. John, you might want to add to that, perhaps.
I can add to it actually. Once we got visibility, let's call it visibility. Once we got visibility, it was amazing how many emails I was getting daily. And when I say amazing, I'm talking 4, but for me that was amazing. From suppliers that were actually offering us free food and chemicals or whatever they were offering towards the initiative. Now, I didn't take them up on it. I've logged the company and I'll go back to them. But the reason I didn't take them up on it is because our initiative was to keep suppliers employed as well. So I didn't want to accept free food because it's about giving back. So by us receiving the money and making these meals, we were buying supplies and therefore keeping the chain going. So I'll revisit them once we go back to some normality. But, you know, it was humbling and amazing, you know, and I thought what they were offering was great. We didn't accept it, but we'll go back there, you know. So
Absolutely.
Amazing.
So that's
Yeah.
it. Once you reach out and once you've reached out and made it clear what your position is and how you're reacting, actually responding to this pandemic rather than reacting, because there's a huge difference about that. Obviously, you're attracting the right people to work with you, not simply from a client perspective, but also from a community perspective, which I think both of you, it's an amazing story, Frank and John. Thank you for sharing this with us, honestly. And we really hope that our audience as well, they will engage in one way or another. They will contact us in a way that it's an amazing opportunity, an amazing mindset that's for each and every company, irrespective of the industry, I presume, because in one way or another, everyone can be part of this community, can provide services and products in a different way and in a different manner. So thank you for sharing your success story with us today. Thank you for being with us, and I hope to see you soon in Malta, Frank. We're waiting for that green light for that corridor travel engagement. We would have to reroute you through any other destination, most probably.
I'll do it.
Exactly, yeah. I'll do it.
I'm pretty sure you will.